So let me just get this straight. You want to learn to play Numot without losing friends. I don't know if that's possible. Welcome back, folks. Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for dropping by and your ongoing support. My name is Patrick, host of the EDH Brutality YouTube page, in which we upload Magic the Gathering content and analysis every Sunday. Before we jump right into today's deck tech, a quick and special thanks to patrons like you for making videos like this possible. For those wondering, as always, links to the deck list as well as timestamps will be provided down in the description of this video. And with that, we can finally get into one of my favorite commanders, Numot the Devastator. Numot the Devastator is a 3 generic, 1 red, white, and blue legendary creature dragon, reading, flying. Whenever Numot the Devastator deals combat damage to a player, you may pay 2 generic and 1 red mana. If you do, destroy up to 2 target lands, which in itself is already a crazy ability, but when you pair that with a 6/6 flyer, that shit adds up. Now, the premise of a deck like this is rather simple. Part 1, drop the equivalent of a nuclear bomb on your opponents. In Part 2, profit. Not only is this one of the most satisfying things to do in all of Magic the Gathering, but it is also one of the most hated playstyles. In fact, a taboo.
Yeah, boy.
Luckily for you, however, this Land Destruction deck is not a painful slugfest. As a matter of fact, that's where most Land Destruction decks fall short. You destroy all lands, and then nothing happens. And that's why people hate Land Destruction, because nobody builds it correctly. Luckily, however, you have someone that knows what they're doing here, or at least thinks they know what they're doing. Whether I'm delusional or not, I'll let you be the judge of that. Now, Numot the Devastator is a rather unique card in which we can abuse very easily. Other than being in Jeskai, which is one of, if not the best color combination in all of Magic, or being a dragon, or being a 6/6, or being a flyer, or—
Patrick, can you shut the fuck up?
Okay, you get the point. Well, what's unique about Numot is his ability, because it can be abused rather easily. Just picture this. You have your Numot, you swing him, and he hits poor Jimmy over here. Jimmy has no flyers, so you spend the 2 generic and 1 red mana to blow up 2 lands. Well, not only can you choose which 2 lands get blown up on board, but they don't even have to be Jimmy's. That's right, if you're playing with a girl named Susan, and you don't like Susan, you hit Jimmy, you're like, Jimmy, sorry, you're taking the damage, I'm activating Numot. Fuck you, Susan. Fuck you.
Sorry, you got a little intense there. Got a little intense.
This interaction isn't only eligible towards people named Susan.
Yeah, baby!
And you know, while we're on the topic of land destruction, let's just get into the cards that destroy lands. Or more, because this is going to get progressively worse. Not just for us, but for our opponents. Starting things off, we have Wasteland. The utility land that has the second ability reading. Sacrifice Wasteland, destroy target non-basic land. This, of course, has its uses, especially in bracket 4 when people play cards like Gia's Cradle. Next up, for a similar yet more universal effect, we have a Strip Mine, which does the exact same thing, but with any land on the table. So yeah, it's just a little bit better. Next up, we do have a Price of Glory, and although this isn't technically a land destruction spell, it does just that. In reality, this is a spell that stops counter magic, because Price of Glory is a spell that reads, whenever a player taps a land for mana during another player's turn, destroy that land. And just for that, we have to include it in this section, even though it's more so a preliminary for our actual land destruction spells, like good old Armageddon, a 3 generic and 1 white mana sorcery speed spell stating, destroy all lands. Or how about its evil sister, Ravages of War, which is literally the same exact thing, same exact speed, same exact mana cost, with just a different name and art.
What?
Moving up in our toxicity, we've got Jokohops, which is a 4 generic and 2 red mana sorcery speed spell stating, bury all artifacts, creatures, and lands. Yeah, that was a big jump, wasn't it? And last but not least, my personal favorite within the land destruction category is Obliterate, which for just 6 generic and 2 red mana reads, Obliterate can't be countered. Destroy all artifacts, creatures, and lands. They can't be regenerated. Not only is this the Magic the Gathering equivalent to Castle Bravo, but the uncounterability of this card adds insult to injury. Kind of like how the code name for the type of bomb was Shrimp. Why was it Shrimp? Now, this next segment of the deck involves what we want to do not only in preparation for the land destruction, but our spells we want to play after the land destruction. That's right, this segment we're talking stacks. First up, we have a Torpor Orb. Simply stating, creatures entering the battlefield don't cause abilities to trigger. Not only is this a fantastic ability preventing players from ramping out lands or various other things, but it's just a cheap effect and great insurance plan. To slow the game down, we have cards such as a Winter Orb, stating as long as Winter Orb is untapped, players can't untap more than one land during their untap steps, as well as Rising Waters, which is a 3 generic and 1 blue mana enchantment spell reading. Lands don't untap during their controller's untap steps. At the beginning of each player's upkeep, that player untaps a land he or she controls. Of course, these two cards pair wonderfully with a Lavinia Azorius Renegade, which is a 2/2 creature with ability stating each opponent can't cast non-creature spells with mana value greater than the number of lands that player controls. Whenever an opponent casts a spell, if no mana was spent to cast it, counter that spell, which really allows both the Winter Orb as well as Rising Waters to put in some work, because it doesn't matter how much they ramp with rocks. It's going to be hard casting those spells with that restriction. And of course, if we're playing all of these hateful cards, we did throw in a Aven Mind Sensor for good measure, which forces opponents to only tutor off the top 4 cards of their deck whenever they search their library. Yeah, that's right, they aren't going to be finding much answers with the top 4 cards. And you're probably wondering, why the hell do you want to slow the game down? Isn't that the problem with land destruction decks? Absolutely, but you also have to remember there's a proper balance here. And let us not forget, our commander, Numot the Devastator, also has a land destruction built within him. Meaning if we're able to slow down the game enough, especially after a mass board wipe of all lands, if we just swing with Numot and pay 3 mana, we should be able to keep our opponents somewhat locked out of the table. And with the said cards I previously mentioned, it just enables us to do so that much quicker. Now, of course, if we really want to create a lock and constrict our opponents, we have cards such as Kismet, coming in at 3 generic and 1 white mana, which states artifacts, creatures, and lands your opponents control enter tap, as well as Frozen Aether, which does the exact same thing. Cards such as Pendril Mists turn those land destruction board wipes into creature wipes, as well as it has an ability stating each creature gains, in quotations, during your upkeep, pay 1 generic mana or bury this creature. Want to make sure our opponents can never afford anything again? That's right, it's inflation time.
The housing market is flashing red. Adjustable rate mortgages, the kind that helped blow up the economy in 2008.
We've got Sphere of Resistance coming in at 2 generic mana, stating all spells cost an additional 1 generic mana to play. Thorn of the Amethyst, reading non-creature spells cost 1 generic more to play. Aura of Silence, stating artifact and enchantment spells your opponents play cost 2 generic more to play. Sacrifice Aura of Silence to destroy target artifact or enchantments. God Pharaoh's Statue at 6 generic mana, reading spells your opponents cast cost 2 generic more to cast. At the beginning of your end step, each opponent loses 1 life, as well as Grand Arbiter Augustine IV, which is a 2/3 legendary creature human advisor for 2 generic and 1 white and blue mana, stating white spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast, blue spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast, and spells your opponents cast cost 1 more generic to cast, making this not only a great taxing effect, but cost reduction on our commander Numot. And last but not least, our final stacks piece of the day is our primary enabler, being Grand Abolisher. Coming in at just 2 white mana, this 2/2 creature human cleric reads, during your turn, your opponents can't cast spells or activate abilities of artifacts, creatures, or enchantments. And yeah, that is a pretty big restriction, only being on our turn. But of course, we're only playing the hateful pieces on our turn. And what's so likable about hate pieces is they're much easier to play than they are to remove. Now, you're probably all wondering, how the hell are we going to survive not only our own board wipes with the land destruction, but also all of the stacks effects? Well, it's simple. with a crap ton of mana rocks. I'm just going to read through these rather quickly. You can pause the video at any point to see what each one does. For color fixing, we have Azorius Signets, Boros Signet, and Izzet Signet. For other mana rocks coming in at 2 mana, we have Arcane Signets, Talisman of Progress, Talisman of Creativity, and Talisman of Conviction. For our 3 mana rocks, we have Darksteel Ignis, Commander Sphere, Chromatic Lantern, Mana Geode, allowing us to scry 1 on its ETB, and Skyclave Relic, which if we pay an additional 3 mana for, allows us to generate 2 more token copies and put them onto the battlefield. Of course, this deck is also equipped with the legendary Soul Ring, Thran Dynamo, and Kalni Gem, which for 4 generic mana reads, when Kalni Gem enters the battlefield, return 2 lands you control to their owner's hand. Tap to add 2 mana of any one color to your mana pool, which works particularly well if you want to save some lands, putting them back in your hand prior to destroying all lands. And last but not least, our final mana rock of the deck happens to be a Gilded Lotus. Now this is on the higher end, coming in at 5 generic mana, but since it's able to tap and add 3 mana of any color, the cost is well worth it. This brew is also equipped with a Smothering Tithe, which will generate treasures whenever opponents draw cards, in which they will be doing quite often because we have several wheels in the deck that we'll be discussing later. But yeah, it's just a great form of ramp for us. Now, of course, another way for us to stay alive is our Pillow Fort-esque cards, because not only will we be dishing out pain in the form of board wipes with land destruction as well as stacks-like effects, but I'm sure our opponents will dislike that immensely and decide to go after us, so we need a way to stay alive long enough to win the game. So right off the bat, I put in cards such as Windborn Muse, Propaganda, as well as Ghostly Prison, which all force our opponents to pay 2 generic mana for each creature attacking us. Yeah, good luck paying mana that you don't have. In the event they do have the mana, we also have a Silent Arbiter, which just forces them to only attack or block with 1 each combat. Cards like Avacyn Angel of Hope allow our mass land destruction spells such as Armageddon or even Obliterate become single-sided, as Avacyn has an ability stating, Flying Vigilance and Indestructible. Other permanents you control have Indestructible, as well as a Tefari's Protection, serving as a great utility piece if we need to phase ourselves out due to an opponent's play or perhaps our own. Naturally, of course, land destruction is going to get rather messy no matter how we go about it, so we have a few insurance pieces within the deck. That's right, we have 5 lands that are indestructible, that being Rustvale Bridge, Silver Bluff Bridge, Razortide Bridge, Darksteel Citadel, and Cascading Cataracts. So go ahead and blow up lands to your heart's content, because those won't be going anywhere. Next up, we have Sarah Paragon, coming in at just 2 generic and 2 white mana reading. Flying. Once during each of your turns, you may play a land from your graveyard or cast a permanent spell with mana value 3 or less from your graveyard. If you do, it gains in quotations. When this permanent is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, exile it and you gain 2 life. As well as Sun Titan, stating whenever Sun Titan enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield, which is quite convenient if you were to ask me. Next up, we have further recursion with Academy Ruins, which if we pay 1 generic and 1 blue mana into, it states put target artifact card from your graveyard on top of your library. And last but not least, one of my favorite utility lands is the subtle effect of Flagstones of Trocaire. Reading, tap to add 1 white mana. When Flagstones of Trocaire is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, you may search your library for a Plains card and put it onto the battlefield tapped, then shuffle your library. So this not only replaces the land that you destroy thanks to a MLD spell, but it also helps thin your deck. Now, of course, if our opponents have strategies to deal with all of the things we have to throw at them, we can always overload a Cyclonic Rift, or perhaps even overload a Vandal Blast, and that should take care of it. But of course, none of these mean anything we can't draw into them. So that's right, this section, we're talking card draw. First up, we have the typical Mystic Remora as well as Rhystic Study. I don't think I need to explain what these cards do. Your deck has blue in them, you're running them. Next up, we have Deep Analysis, which for 4 mana allows us to draw 2 cards with a flashback ability. We have Preordained to cipher through the top of our deck, Treasure Cruise to dig deeper, File of Galadriel as a neat little mana rock that also has a hat trick of drawing additional cards, or perhaps gaining life, as well as the Immortal Sun. The Immortal Sun is a 6 generic mana legendary artifact spell that reads, players can't activate Planeswalker's loyalty abilities. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an additional card. Spells you cast cost 1 generic less to cast, and creatures you control get +1/+1. We also have a Consecrated Sphinx, which undoubtedly is the best card draw spell within the deck, allowing us to draw 2 cards whenever an opponent draws a card. And of course, this gets out of hand rather quickly with our wheel-like effects. Because for those, we have the typical Windfall, forcing players to discard their hands and draw cards equal to the greatest number of cards discarded this way. Memory Jar, with an ability stating, tap and sacrifice Memory Jar. Each player exiles all cards from his or her hand face down and draws 7 cards. At the beginning of the next end step, each player discards his or her hand and returns to his or her hand each card he or she exiled this way, as well as our last wheel-like effect being Midnight Clock, which is a 3 generic and 1 blue mana artifact spell that reads, tap to add 1 blue mana or pay 2 generic and 1 blue mana instant speed to put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. At the beginning of each upkeep, put an hour counter on Midnight Clock. When the 12th counter is put on Midnight Clock, shuffle your hand and graveyard into your library, then draw 7 cards. Exile Midnight Clock. So you can see with all these wheels and card draw effects, we won't be running out of gas anytime soon. And of course, the Consecrated Sphinx as well as the previously mentioned Smothering Tide will only grow that much stronger. So you're probably wondering now, how does the deck win though? I mean, it's simple. You destroy lands and you lock your opponents out. And for those that are still like, I don't get it, well, there is another way, and that's Voltron. Because once again, while we destroy lands, if we have 3 mana, we can swing in with our commander, which is a flying 6/6, further destroying more lands. This is the equivalent of kicking a dog while it's already down. But for those that really want to make this win clear, we have a nice Voltron package for you all. For protection, we have a Champion's Helm, which for 3 mana gives our commander +2/+2, as well as hexproof. We also have Mithril Coat, which has Flash and Indestructible, a free equip, as well as turning the equipped creature into an indestructible creature. We also have a Boros Charm, which not only makes all of our permanents indestructible, but we could also choose to give any select creature double strike, which means if we have even more mana, we can pay 6 to destroy 4 lands with Numot. We have Clout of the Dominus, which is a rather cheap enchantment aura, coming in just 1 blue or red mana stating enchant creature. And as long as enchanted creature is red, it gets +1/+1 in haste, which last time I checked, Numot is both. And last but not least, our final Voltron piece for protection is Caduceus Staff of Hermes, which for 2 generic and 1 white mana reads, equipped creature has lifelink. As long as you have 30 or more life, equipped creature gets +5/+5 and has indestructible and, in quotations, prevent all damage that would be dealt to this creature. Which I don't know about you, but is rather crazy on top of a flying 6/6 base stat. And of course, our non-protective Voltron pieces are just as good. We have a Conqueror's Flail, reading equipped creature gets +1/+1 for each color among permanents you control. And as long as Conqueror's Flail is attached to a creature, your opponents can't cast spells during your turn. We have Shadow Sphere at 1 generic mana reading. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample and lifelink. Pay 1 generic mana at instant speed, and permanents your opponents control lose hexproof and indestructible until end of turn. As well as our last Voltron piece coming with Steel of the Godhead, stating enchant creature. As long as enchanted creature is white, it has +1/+1 and has lifelink. As well as long as enchanted creature is blue, it gets +1/+1 and is unblockable. Not only ensuring we're able to always get that land destruction trigger with Numot off, but with this and so many others, you can see how we both add up the damage and our life totals to stay alive. And with these on board, it's rather academic. Clear the board once, and your opponents will not be coming back. And if they do want to play it out, well, congratulations. Like I said, we have all these Voltron pieces. It's going to be a quick in swift demise. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's deck tech. This is one of my favorite high-powered lists, and if you're interested in getting a greater look at it, feel free to take a look down in the description below. And perhaps one of the greatest strengths of it is, even though the win con is Voltron oriented, due to land destruction as well as our other hate pieces, it's a Voltron deck that doesn't rely on the commander in the early game. All we have to do is ramp out, play the commander, clear the board, and then start swinging. But of course, with any Voltron deck, especially one with abilities such as this, the sooner we can get them out and start hating people's lands, the better. Just be sure not to spread the hate around and only direct it towards a single player, because even though that is a dick move, a 3v1 is always much harder than a 2v1. And of course, if you can do this quick enough, you could always take out a player with Voltron damage, and player number 2 you can target for all the land removal, practically killing 2 birds with 1 stone. But yeah, that's gonna do it for today's video. If you have any thoughts on this deck tech, feel free to leave them down in the comments section below. I would love to hear what you have to say. And as always, if you want to stay tuned for future videos in the channel, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell down in the bottom right hand corner of the screen. So my name is Patrick, host of EDH Brutality. I thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, guys.